The great docking bay of the Orion Summit Station was never quiet. Ships came and went every hour, carrying diplomats, traders, and travelers from every corner of the galaxy. Yet that day, something unusual was happening. The busy hum of voices had turned into a tense silence. Dozens of alien representatives stood in a half-circle, watching one person in the center of it all. That person was not human. She was Princess Varela of the Andorrean Dominion, a tall, graceful figure with skin like silver and eyes that reflected every shade of blue. A thin crown floated just above her head, held in place by invisible energy fields. Her long robes shimmered as she moved, and every step seemed deliberate, like she was dancing to music only she could hear. A small group of royal guards surrounded her. Their armor was polished so brightly that the docking bay lights reflected off them in sharp flashes. They looked ready to draw their weapons at the slightest threat. Across from her, an older alien with green-scaled skin and wide golden eyes spoke in a deep voice. "Your Highness, we have prepared 3 of our finest ships for your journey. Each one is equipped with the highest protection technology. You will be perfectly safe." The princess's answer was calm but firm. "No, I will not step aboard any of them." The alien diplomat frowned. "Then perhaps the Croson fleet could—" "No," she said again, her voice cutting through the air like a blade. The crowd murmured. Representatives from other species exchanged confused glances. Refusing the Crosons was strange enough. They were famous for their unbeatable defense ships, but refusing every single escort offered to her was beyond unusual. The green-scaled diplomat's voice grew sharper. "Your Highness, this delay is dangerous. You are expected at your homeworld before the week ends. Every moment here puts you at risk." Varela tilted her head slightly, as though the matter was not urgent at all. "I understand. But my decision is final. I will not travel unless the ship is human." This time the murmuring turned into a shocked wave of whispers. Humans were newcomers to the galactic stage. They had only been traveling among the stars for 30 years. Their ships were fast but small, their technology creative but sometimes unpredictable. Many older species saw humans as brave but reckless. Trusting a royal heir's safety to a human ship was like asking a bird to cross a storm with its wings tied. A tall, insectoid envoy clicked its mandibles in disbelief. "Humans? They barely know half the navigation charts. Why would you—" "Because I trust them," Varela interrupted. Her eyes scanned the room, daring anyone to challenge her. The insectoid envoy fell silent. One of her guards, a bulky Andorian soldier, leaned close to whisper something in her ear. She listened, nodded slightly, and then looked toward the gathered ambassadors. "I will wait until a human captain is brought here. Until then, I will not move from this station." It was as if she had thrown a spark into dry grass. The room burst into arguments. Some demanded an explanation, others called it foolish, and a few muttered that humans had probably bribed her. The noise rose and fell like waves crashing against the walls. Up on the station's command balcony, a man in a dark Navy uniform watched the scene below. Commander Daniel Hayes, captain of the Earth vessel Odyssey's Grace, had just docked for refueling when the commotion caught his attention. He leaned on the railing, trying to figure out why the entire diplomatic bay had turned into a debate. Pit. He spotted her immediately. Even from a distance, Princess Varela's presence was impossible to ignore. She looked like someone who had never once doubted a decision in her life. And now, for reasons Daniel couldn't begin to guess, her decision had caused half the galaxy's envoys to lose their patience. A voice spoke over the station's internal comms. "All available human captains, please report to Docking Bay 7 immediately." Daniel's brow furrowed. He had been hoping to finish refueling, grab some rest, and then continue toward Earth. Instead, he found himself walking toward docking. Bay 7, curiosity pulling him in like gravity. When he arrived, the first thing he noticed was that everyone turned to look at him. It wasn't a friendly kind of attention. It was the heavy, expectant kind that said, "You've just become part of something you didn't ask for." The second thing he noticed was the princess herself, now standing in the center of the room, with her arms folded elegantly in front of her. Her expression didn't change when their eyes met, but Daniel thought he caught the smallest flicker of approval. "This is Captain Daniel Hayes," announced the human diplomat, who had been waiting near the entrance. "Commander of the Odyssey's Grace. He's just completed a deep space run without incident." The princess studied him for a long moment. "Your ship, is it operational?" "Yes, Your Highness," Daniel said cautiously. "Why?" "Because," she replied, "I will be your passenger." He blinked. "Come again?" "You will take me to the Andorian capital. We depart as soon as you are ready." Daniel looked at the diplomat, then at the princess, then at the tense ring of alien envoys. Every instinct told him this was the sort of job that could only lead to trouble. Political trouble, dangerous trouble, or both. "Why me?" he asked. The princess's eyes softened just a little, but her voice stayed steady. "Because you are human." The diplomat at Daniel's side leaned in and whispered, "You'd better say yes. Orders will follow soon anyway." Daniel sighed, inwardly. He had a bad feeling about this, but he straightened his back, gave a short nod, and said, "All right, Princess. My ship's at docking port 12. We can leave in an hour." A small smile touched Varella's lips. "Acceptable." As they began walking toward the exit, Daniel noticed dozens of alien eyes following them. He could almost hear their unspoken thoughts. Why humans? Why him? What does she know that we don't? Whatever the answer was, Daniel was certain of one thing. His week had just gotten a lot more complicated. The Odyssey's Grace was not built to impress royalty. It was a medium-class human transport ship. Strong engines, decent shields, and a lot of patched-up repairs from years of long travel. Its metal hull was marked with scratches from asteroid runs, and the corridors inside were narrow, with pipes running along the ceilings. Princess Virella walked up the boarding ramp without hesitation, her silver robe brushing against the ship's floor as if she were stepping into a palace hall instead of a freighter. Her guards followed closely behind, scanning every corner. Commander Daniel Hayes walked beside her, wondering what the princess would think of the cramped living quarters. "This ship smells different," she said, looking around. Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Different good or different bad?" "Different honest," she replied. "Like a place that works for a living." The crew was already waiting in the main lounge. 4 humans, who had served together for years. There was Chief Engineer Mara, tall and sharp-eyed, Navigator Kim, who always had a map tablet in his hands, Medical Officer Elena, who carried a calm smile, and Security Officer Rafe, who looked at the princess the same way he'd look at a live bomb. Daniel introduced them one by one. Each gave a polite nod, though Rafe's was a little stiff. Once the formalities were over, Daniel led the princess toward the passenger quarters. "We don't have royal suites," he warned, "but we cleared our best cabin for you. Fresh sheets, cleaned, every surface. It's not large, but it's private." "I am not here for comfort," she said, stepping inside the small but tidy room. "I am here for safety." That answer made Daniel's curiosity grow even more. Safety from what? A private conversation as. The crew prepared for departure. Virella requested to speak with Daniel alone in the small briefing room. The door closed behind them, and for the first time, she looked slightly uneasy. "I did not choose a human ship by accident," she began. "There are forces in my own empire that would prefer I never arrive home." Daniel leaned back in his chair. "Political rivals?" "Family," she corrected softly. Some believe they should rule instead of me. They have influence in the fleets of other species. If I traveled with any of them, it would be too easy for a message to be delayed, or for an accident to happen in deep space. And you think humans are too new in the galaxy to be part of that mess. She nodded. You have no stake in my throne. That makes you the only ones I can trust. Daniel didn't answer right away. He knew transporting her would be more dangerous than the diplomat had admitted, but the look in her eyes, calm but carrying a weight, told him she was speaking the truth. We'll get you there, he said at last. The first trouble. The Odyssey's Grace lifted off from the docking bay smoothly, the hum of its engines, filling the ship. Outside the viewport, the station grew smaller, until it was only a cluster of lights in the distance. Course set for the Andorian capital, Kim reported from the navigation seat. 2 jumps through stable wormholes then, a straight run through open space. Keep us clear of major traffic lanes, Daniel said. Let's not advertise where we're going. The first jump went without incident. Stars stretched into lines, then snapped back into view as the ship emerged into a quieter sector. But just 30 minutes later, Rafe's voice came over the yay. Comm from the security station. Captain, we've got a shadow. Daniel walked over. On the screen, a small blip was following them, just at the edge of sensor range. Could be a coincidence, Rafe said, but it's matching our course. Exactly. Daniel frowned. Any ID? None. They're running cold. No transponder signal. Princess Varela appeared behind them, silent as a shadow. They're here for me, she said simply. How can you be sure? Daniel asked. I can feel it. Testing the pursuer, Daniel wasn't ready to panic yet. All right, let's see how much they want to follow us. Kim, alter course, 15 degrees starboard, random pattern, not toward any known system. The Odyssey's Grace shifted smoothly, changing its path. For a few minutes, the blip disappeared from sensors. Then it reappeared, still behind. Them, still matching the new course. That's no coincidence, Rafe muttered. They're keeping their distance, Mara noted. Probably waiting for a good place to strike. Daniel crossed his arms. Then we'll make sure we choose the place, not them. Life. On board, despite the tension, the journey continued. The princess moved easily among the crew, asking questions about Earth's history, human art, and even the ship's machinery. Mara showed her the engine room, where she surprised everyone by recognizing some of the power core components. Apparently, she'd studied engineering before politics claimed her life. At meals, she joined the crew at the same table eating, the same simple food packs they did. It is not the flavor that matters, she said once. It is the company. Daniel watched how quickly she adapted to the ship's rhythm. She didn't demand special treatment. She seemed more curious about humans than worried about her own comfort. But whenever the conversation drifted toward her family or her home world, she became quieter, as though weighing each word. A sudden warning. 2 days into the trip, Kim's voice broke the calm. Captain, we're approaching the second wormhole jump, but sensors are showing an anomaly near the entrance. What kind of anomaly? Daniel asked. A ship. Waiting. The image on the screen showed a sleek vessel with sharp angles and glowing blue lines along its hull. No ID signal, no communication attempt, just sitting there, blocking the path to the wormhole. They want us to come closer, Rafe said grimly. Princess Varela stepped forward, her voice quiet but certain. That design? It is Andorian, my cousin's personal flagship. Mara whistled under her breath. And I'm guessing they're not here to say hello. Daniel's jaw tightened. Looks like we've been found. Decision at the wormhole for... A long moment, the bridge was silent except for the hum of the ship. Daniel's mind worked quickly. They could turn back and find another route, but that would cost days, and the pursuers behind them might catch up. Or they could try to break through now, risking a direct confrontation with a ship that was almost certainly more powerful. He looked at the princess. If we run, they'll still chase us. If we fight, we'll be taking a gamble. What's your call? She met his eyes without flinching. You are the captain. But remember this, they will not stop. Every delay makes it easier for them to corner us. Daniel nodded slowly. Then we go forward. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. The crew snapped into action, the tension in the air sharp as a blade. Outside the viewport, the wormhole shimmered like a swirling blue tunnel. And between them and that gateway to safety, the enemy ship waited. The Odyssey's Grace drifted forward at a cautious speed. Ahead, the wormhole swirled like a giant whirlpool of light, its blue and silver currents twisting endlessly. Between them and that glowing tunnel floated the Andorian flagship. Vessel twice their size, its hull sharp like a blade, with bright energy lines running along its surface. Inside the human ship's bridge, every crew member was silent, their eyes fixed on the image before them. The Andorian vessel hadn't moved yet. It was just waiting. Still no hail from them? Daniel asked. Rafe checked the comms. Nothing. They're just sitting there blocking our way. Mara's hands rested on the engineering console, ready to push the engines at a moment's notice. If we go in slow, they'll have time to lock us in a tractor beam. Daniel's gaze stayed on the flagship. We're not going in slow. A risky plan, he stood up and faced the crew. We've got one advantage, and we're smaller and lighter. That ship's weapons are strong, but they're designed for long-range battles. In close quarters, they'll have a hard time aiming at us without risking damage to themselves. Kim frowned. So, you want to get close? Exactly, Daniel said. We're going to run right past them into the wormhole before they can react. That's a thin plan, Rafe muttered. It's a human plan, Daniel replied with a small grin. Princess Varela stepped closer. If you believe it will work, I will trust you. The chase begins. Daniel sat back in the captain's chair. Mara, give me full power to engines. Kim, line us up with the wormhole. Rafe, stand by on countermeasures. The ship's engines roared, and the Odyssey's Grace surged forward. The Andorian flagship remained still until the humans were halfway to the wormhole. Then, its engines lit up, and the massive ship began to move. They're closing fast, Kim reported. Distance, 2,000 meters. The enemy ship fired first. A bright blue energy bolt that streaked past them, missing by a narrow margin. They're warning us, Rafe said, trying to make us stop. Then let's make them miss again, Daniel said. Hard to port. The Odyssey's Grace swerved sharply. Another bolt flashed past, close enough to shake the hull. Mara adjusted the power flow, keeping the engines from overheating. Close quarters. The wormhole loomed ahead, its spinning light growing larger. The Andorian flagship slid to the side, trying to cut them off. They're moving to block the entrance, Kim warned. Daniel's eyes narrowed. Then we don't give them the chance. Bring us under them. Under? Rafe asked in disbelief. Exactly. Fly so close to their hull they can't target us without hitting themselves. Kim's hands flew over the controls, and the Odyssey's Grace dipped sharply downward. The massive Andorian ship filled the viewport. They were so close, Daniel could see the faint seams between its armor plates. Alarms rang as their proximity sensors went off. Watch the clearance, Mara shouted. Kim gritted his teeth. A few meters to spare, maybe less. The decoy moved. They skimmed along the underside of the flagship. The Andorian guns stopped firing. Their targeting systems couldn't lock. On without risking a hit to their own ship. Perfect, Daniel said. Rafe, launch the flares on my mark. Ready, Rafe replied. As they neared the flagship's tail section, Daniel shouted, Mark! A cluster of bright countermeasure flares shot out from the Odyssey's Grace, scattering in all directions. The Andorian ship's sensors read multiple targets, and for a moment, it hesitated. That was all the time the humans needed. Into the wormhole! Full speed! Straight into the wormhole! Daniel ordered. The Odyssey's Grace shot forward like an arrow. Behind them, the flagship tried to turn, but its size worked against it. It couldn't match the smaller ship's sudden burst of speed. The shimmering mouth of the wormhole filled the viewport. The ship hit the swirling edge, and the world outside dissolved into streaks of light and color. Inside the wormhole, there was no up or down, only a tunnel of shifting energy, glowing with blue and silver. The ship's hull vibrated as space twisted around them. "They're following," Kim said, watching the sensors. "The flagship's right behind us." Daniel nodded. "Then we make sure they regret it." Human trickery in a wormhole. Navigation was tricky. The gravitational currents could push a ship off course, and sudden changes in speed could cause turbulence strong enough to damage the hull. Most captains avoided risky maneuvers here, but Daniel wasn't most captains. "Mara, shift power 2. The aft thrusters. Kim, give me a zigzag pattern. Shallow but fast." The Odyssey's Grace darted left, then right, then left again. The currents inside the wormhole responded, forming unstable eddies. The Andorian flagship, larger and less agile, had to adjust with heavy thruster bursts to stay steady. Rafe, on my signal, dropped the last set of flares right into their path. "Got it." Daniel waited for the perfect moment. "Now!" Rafe hit the release. The flares burst out, and the wormhole currents swept them straight toward the flagship. The bright decoys confused its targeting systems, forcing the ship to slow slightly, a narrow escape. The wormhole exit appeared ahead like a distant circle of white light. "5 seconds to exit," Kim called out. "Hold on," Daniel warned. They burst out of the wormhole in a flash. Stars returned, and the calm of normal space replaced the swirling chaos behind them. The Odyssey's Grace didn't stop. It kept accelerating away from the exit point. Moments later, the Andorian flagship emerged. But now, they were too far ahead for it to catch them immediately. "They're still chasing," Rafe said, checking the sensors. "They'll keep chasing," Varela said quietly. "Until they have me." Daniel glanced at her. "Then we just have to make sure they never do." A new problem. Before anyone could relax, Kim's console beeped. "Captain, I'm picking up another signal ahead of us. Smaller ship. No ID. It's on an intercept course." Daniel's jaw tightened. "So now we've got trouble both behind and ahead." Varela looked at the screen, her eyes narrowing. "That smaller one, I know that design too. It belongs to the same faction." The crew exchanged glances. One ship behind, one ship ahead, and the open space between them was shrinking fast. Daniel leaned back in his chair, thinking quickly. "All right. If they want to trap us, we'll make sure the trap snaps shut on them instead." The princess tilted her head. "You have a plan?" Daniel gave a faint smile. "Not yet. But I'm human. We're good at making them up as we go." The Odyssey's Grace flew through open space, engines running at full power. Behind them, the massive Andorian flagship chased without pause. Ahead, a smaller, faster ship closed in. On the bridge, the crew studied the tactical display. 2 red blips moving toward them from opposite sides. The space between was shrinking like the jaws of a trap. "They're trying to box us in," Rafe said. "If they catch us between them, we won't have room to dodge." Daniel sat forward in the captain's chair. "Then we won't let them box us in." Princess Varela stood near the viewport, her silver robe brushing the floor. "They will expect you to turn away from the smaller ship," she said. "That is the obvious choice." Daniel looked at her. "So we do the opposite?" She gave a small nod. "If you dare." Turning toward the danger, Kim, Daniel said, "set our course directly toward the smaller ship." "Full speed!" The navigator blinked. "Toward them?" "Yes. Let's make them panic." The engines roared and the stars ahead blurred as the Odyssey's Grace surged forward. The smaller ship kept coming, but its formation wavered slightly. The sudden aggression from the humans had caught them off guard. "They're adjusting," Rafe reported. "Probably getting ready to fire." "Good," Daniel said. "Mara, I want the engine heat pushed up. Make us look like we're overloading." Mara grinned. "Making us look broken? Easy." The illusion within minutes, the ship's heat signature spiked. To anyone scanning them, it would seem like the human vessel was running its engines far beyond safety limits. On the screen, the smaller, Andorian craft shifted its course slightly, moving into a position that would allow it to disable rather than destroy. They wanted the princess alive. "Rafe," Daniel said, "ready the magnetic cargo launcher. Load the biggest scrap we've got." Rafe's eyes lit up. "We're going to throw trash at them?" "Big, sharp, metal trash," Daniel replied. "Thai, first strike." As they closed the distance, the smaller ship fired first, a pair of bright stun bolts meant to disable. Kim swerved hard, and the shots passed harmlessly into space. "Target in range," Rafe said. "Fire," Daniel ordered. With a loud thunk, the launcher hurled a spinning mass of broken plating, old bolts, and steel beams toward the enemy. The scrap hit their shields in a burst of sparks, forcing the smaller ship to slow and adjust its course. "They didn't like that," Rafe said with satisfaction, "using the trap against them." "Now," Daniel said, "angle us just enough so the flagship behind us is lined up with the smaller ship ahead." Kim quickly adjusted the heading. On the tactical screen, the two red blips were almost in a straight line with the Odyssey's Grace in between. "What's the plan?" Mara asked. "Make them fire at each other," Daniel said simply. The smaller ship regained its speed and prepared another shot. At the same time, the flagship behind them began charging its heavy cannons, unaware that its target was now almost directly in line with its ally. The perfect moment. "Kim," Daniel said quietly, "when I say so, dive." Down hard. The smaller ship fired again, bright stun bolts racing toward the Odyssey's Grace. "Now!" Daniel shouted. Kim threw the ship into a steep dive. The stun bolts missed the human vessel entirely and continued straight toward the flagship. The massive ship's shields flared as the bolts struck. For a moment there was confusion in the Andorian ranks. The flagship hesitated, then fired a blast meant for the humans, but the shot passed dangerously close to the smaller ship instead. "They're shouting at each other," Rafe said, listening to intercepted comm signals. "Accusing each other of interfering." Slipping through. While the two Andorian ships argued and adjusted positions, the Odyssey's Grace shot past the smaller one, slipping through the gap before it could close again. "Rear sensors. They're still following," Kim reported. "They will," Varela said, "but now they do not trust each other completely. That will slow them." Daniel glanced at her. "You seem very sure of how they think." She met his eyes. "I grew up in that court. I know their pride. It is their weakness. Temporary calm." For the next 2 hours, the chase quieted. The flagship remained at a distance, and the smaller ship hung back as well, as if both were waiting for the other to make the next move. The crew took turns resting, though no one truly relaxed. Mara worked in the engine room, fine-tuning the power systems. Rafe patrolled the narrow corridors, checking the security locks. In the galley, Daniel found Varela drinking a cup of hot tea. She looked out the small window at the endless stars. "Do you miss home?" Daniel asked. She was silent for a moment. "I miss what it should be, not what it has become." Daniel didn't press for more, but he could hear in her voice the weight of someone who had left more than just a palace behind. The ambush ahead. 3 hours later, Kim's voice cut through the calm. "Captain, I'm detecting a cluster of signals ahead. Could be asteroids, but the readings are strange." Daniel walked to the console. The readings weren't solid rock. They were moving, shifting. "That's no asteroid field," Daniel said. Those are mines. Energy mines. Varella's expression tightened. They're forcing us into a trap again. If we slow to navigate carefully, they'll catch us. Daniel thought for a moment, then smiled faintly. Then we don't? Slow down. Through the mines, Mara. I need every ounce of power in the forward shields, Daniel ordered. Kim, plot the narrowest safe path through that field and keep us dead center. That's going to be tight, Kim said. Better tight than dead, Daniel replied. The Odyssey's Grace roared into the minefield. Glowing orbs drifted past the hull, some pulsing with dangerous light. The shields flared whenever they got too close. The crew held their breath as they weaved between clusters of mines, the ship's engines straining. Behind them, the flagship and the smaller ship followed, but the humans' unpredictable path forced them to slow. Breaking clear at last, the minefield thinned. The Odyssey's Grace burst out into open space once more. The two pursuing ships emerged seconds later, but the humans had gained valuable distance. Daniel leaned back in his chair. That's another trap we've lived through, Varela allowed, herself a small smile. You are making it very difficult for them to predict you. Good, Daniel said. Let's keep it that way. The Odyssey's Grace pushed on through the darkness of space. The long hours since the minefield had been quiet, but no one on the bridge relaxed. On the sensors, the two enemy ships still followed, the massive Andorian flagship trailing. From far behind, and the smaller, faster ship weaving in and out of scanner range. Daniel sat in the captain's chair, staring at the tactical display. They're waiting for the right moment to strike, he said quietly. Or, Mara suggested from the engineering station, they're hoping we make a mistake first. Princess Varela stood near the viewport, her eyes fixed on the endless starfield. They will not wait forever. When they act, they will strike with everything they have. A dangerous idea. Daniel tapped the arm of his chair, thinking. We can't outrun them forever. Our engines are good, but we'll burn out before they do. That means we have to end this chase now. Rafe raised an eyebrow. End it how? We don't have the firepower to destroy one of them, let alone both. True, Daniel said, but maybe we can make them destroy each other. The bridge went quiet. You're talking about turning their own pride against them again, Varela guessed. Daniel nodded. Exactly. But this time, we push harder. We put them in a position where they think we're an easy target and make them fight over who gets to take us down. The setup. Kim, Daniel said, find me a patch of space with natural hazards. Something nasty enough to scare cautious pilots, but not so bad we can't fly through. Kim scanned quickly, then pointed at a section of the map. There. A debris field from a shattered moon. Dense, sharp rocks, high radiation pockets. Most captains avoid it unless they have no choice. Daniel smiled. Perfect. Mara frowned. Radiation's going to strain our shields. Only for a little while, Daniel said. We'll make it quick. Entering the field, the Odyssey's Grace veered toward the debris field. Behind them, the two Andorian ships adjusted course to follow. As they neared the jagged rocks, the bridge lights dimmed, a side effect of rerouting more power to the shields. Outside, massive chunks of stone and twisted metal drifted silently. Keep it tight, Daniel told Kim. We want them close behind us. The ship darted between large fragments, skimming dangerously close to sharp edges. The pursuing ships stayed on their tail, unwilling to lose sight of their prey. The trap. Springs when they reached the center of the debris field, Daniel gave the next order. Slow to half speed. Kim hesitated. That'll let them catch up. Exactly. The big, smaller ship rushed forward, trying to close the gap first. The flagship followed, not wanting to be outdone. Both ships came in from opposite angles, moving dangerously close to each other. Rafe, Daniel said, Arm the cargo launcher with the last of the magnetic scrap. When the smaller one gets right behind us, fire straight up. Seconds later, the smaller ship was in position. Fire. The launcher hurled the scrap into the space above them. It struck a large drifting rock, sending it tumbling directly into the smaller ship's path. The pilot swerved hard, right into the flagship's firing line. Pride turns to conflict on the sensors. The flagship's weapons lit up, but the shot clipped the smaller ship's wing. The smaller vessel spun slightly before regaining control. "They're hailing each other," Rafe reported. "It's not polite," Daniel smirked. "Keep weaving between them, make it look like we're trying to escape straight ahead, so they keep chasing into each other's lines of fire." The Odyssey's Grace darted left and right through the dense debris, while the two Andorian ships tried to follow. Twice more, they came dangerously close to hitting each other. The tension between them was rising like steam in a sealed tank. "The final push. We're almost at the far edge of the field," Kim said. "Clear space ahead." "Good," Daniel said. "Time for the last step. Mara, cut engine output by 30%. Make it look like we're losing speed." The Odyssey's Grace slowed, just enough to make it seem vulnerable. Both enemy ships surged forward, trying to reach them first. As they lined up on either side, Daniel gave the final order. "Full speed, straight ahead!" The human ship shot, forward like a dart. Behind them, the two Andorian ships found themselves side by side in the narrow exit corridor of the debris field. One tried to pass the other, and their hulls scraped. That was enough. The clash. The flagship's shields flared, and its captain, furious, fired a short burst at the smaller ship. The smaller vessel immediately returned fire. In seconds, the A-2 were locked in a full exchange of weapons right in the middle of the debris field. On the bridge of the Odyssey's Grace, Rafe laughed under his breath. "They're too busy fighting each other to care about us now." "Keep us moving," Daniel said. "We'll put as much distance between us and them as we can." Varela stepped closer to the captain's chair. "You've done more than I could have hoped. They may still come after me later, but for now, you've given us a clear path." A moment of peace. Hours later, the enemy ships were no longer visible on sensors. The Odyssey's Grace cruised toward the Andorian capitals, coordinates under a calmer sky of stars. The crew gathered in the lounge for a quick meal. Even in the small space, there was an air of relief. For the first time in days, no one was checking the sensors every few seconds. Mara raised a cup. "To human luck." Daniel corrected her with a faint smile. "Not luck. Human stubbornness." Varela looked around at the faces of the crew. "And human loyalty. You risked everything for me, though you owed me nothing. That is why I chose a human ship." Her words settled warmly in the room. For a brief moment, even Daniel allowed himself to feel the quiet satisfaction of survival. The capital in sight, the next jump would bring them into the Andorian system. Kim plotted the course, and the ship prepared for its final leg. But in the back of Daniel's mind, one thought remained. The chase might be over, but the danger was not. As the Odyssey's Grace slipped into faster-than-light travel, Varela stood by the viewport, the blue light of the jump reflecting in her silver eyes. She did not smile, but her voice carried quiet certainty when she spoke. "Soon, Captain Hayes, the whole Alliance will know that humans are far more than they believe." The Odyssey's Grace emerged from its final jump into the Andorian system. Before them, the capital world glowed like a bright jewel in the blackness of space, oceans sparkling blue, continents lined with shining cities. Orbiting it were countless stations and ships, their silver hulls reflecting the sunlight. For the first time since leaving Orion Summit Station, the crew could see their destination. They had made it. On the bridge, Daniel let out a quiet breath. "Home for you, Princess." Varela stood at the front viewport, her gaze steady. "Yes, but not all who wait for me here are friends. The unwelcome escort as they approached, a voice came over the comms. Deep, formal, and unmistakably Andorian. This is the Royal Defense Fleet. Identify yourself and prepare for escort. Daniel exchanged a glance with Rafe. Sounds polite. Enough. Varela shook her head slightly. Listen to the tone. They are not pleased. 4 sleek Andorian cruisers appeared on the sensors, forming a loose box around the Odyssey's grace. Their weapons were not charged, but their presence was more than enough to remind the humans that they were outgunned. You will follow us. To the Royal Docking Bay, the voice continued. Daniel tapped the comm switch. Understood. We're bringing the princess home. The arrival. The Royal Docking Bay was massive, wide enough to hold a dozen large warships, its floor polished to a mirror shine. Rows of armored guards stood in formation. At the far end, a tall platform waited, where high-ranking nobles and council members had gathered. The Odyssey's grace touched down gently, the engines powered down, and the ramp lowered with a hiss. Varela descended first, her silver robe flowing behind her. Daniel and the crew followed, staying a respectful distance behind. Every eye in the room was on them. The confrontation. At the base of the platform, an older Andorian noble stepped forward. His robes were black and gold, his voice smooth but cold. Princess Varela, you have returned. In the company of humans. Varela's chin lifted. Yes, they are the ones who ensured my safe arrival, when no other ship could be trusted. The noble's eyes flicked toward Daniel, studying him as though he were an insect. Humans are unpredictable. Why choose them over the finest vessels of the Alliance? Varela did not look away. Because the finest vessels of the Alliance could be bought or deceived. These humans had no interest in my throne, only in keeping their word. And they have succeeded where others failed. The public challenge a murmur spread among the nobles. Some looked displeased, others curious. From the side of the room, a familiar figure stepped forward, Varela's cousin, the one she had feared most. He wore ceremonial armor and a sharp smile. My dear cousin, he said smoothly, it is convenient for you to arrive without any witnesses from your own people. How can we know your story is true? Daniel felt Rafe tense beside him. He didn't need to know the full political history to understand the danger in the man's words. Varela faced her cousin calmly. Because I am here, alive, after being hunted from the moment I left the summit, and these humans fought for me at every turn. That is proof enough. The declaration. The room fell quiet. Every noble and officer watched as Varela stepped forward, her voice carrying clearly. Today I return to my homeworld, not because of our fleets, not because of our politics, but because of the courage and loyalty of one human crew, a crew from a world new to the stars, underestimated by nearly everyone in this hall. They faced ships larger than their own, weapons more advanced, and traps set by those who wished me gone. And yet they did not falter. They did not betray me. They brought me home. Her eyes swept the room, and her voice grew stronger. From this day forward, the humans of Earth will have the protection and friendship of the Andorian throne. Any who threaten them will answer to me. They have earned a place among the most trusted allies of our people. The shift in the room. The nobles exchanged looks. Some were clearly unhappy, but others nodded in approval. A few even seemed impressed. The political tide was shifting. Right there in that docking bay. Daniel glanced at his crew. Mara's eyebrows were raised. Kim was quietly smiling, and Rafe looked like he didn't trust the sudden praise at all. A private word. After the formal greetings ended, Varela led Daniel aside to a quieter corner. You may not realize it yet, she said, but what you have done will be remembered, not just by my people, but by the Alliance. Daniel shrugged slightly. We were just doing our job, she smiled faintly. That is what makes it remarkable. You risked everything, and you still call it duty. For a moment, she seemed less like a royal figure, and more like someone simply grateful to be alive. Farewell. At the ramp back at the Odyssey's grace, the crew prepared to depart. They had been given clearance to leave whenever they wished. Varela came to the base of the ramp to see them off. She looked at each of them in turn. You will always be welcome here, and if you ever call for aid, I will answer. Daniel gave a short nod. Take care of yourself, Princess. I will, she said. And you, take care of that ship. It is more than metal now. It is the vessel that carried history. With that, she stepped back, and the crew boarded. The ramp closed, the engines came to life, and the Odyssey's grace rose into the sky. A new chapter for humanity, as the ship broke free of the planet's gravity and sailed into open space, the crew sat in the lounge, sharing a quiet moment. So, Mara said, we just changed the politics of an entire empire, not bad for a week's work. Let's hope it doesn't make us too popular, Rafe muttered. I don't like attention. Daniel leaned back in his chair. Attention or not, we proved something. To them, and maybe to ourselves. Kim looked up from his tablet. That humans belong out here? Daniel nodded. Exactly. We belong. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly ahead, each one a possible path. The Odyssey's grace turned toward its next journey, carrying a crew that had faced the galaxy and earned its respect. And somewhere, on a distant world, an Andorian princess remembered the humans who had refused to let her fall.